Hey, welcome into another episode of the Fasting Guy podcast. Yes, we've made just slight changes to the name of the podcast and the name of social media. Some things that I'll get into very briefly. First, let me thank my patrons. These are folks who chip me a few bucks each month to offset the cost of podcast hosting and the other associated costs that go into making it. I've never made $1 off anything I've done social media wise, podcasting wise. Matter of fact, I've just eat money on it year after year. We added ads to the podcast about a year ago that helped offset some of the cost. And then I started having patrons come in and support what we're doing as well. And that's helped enormously. And as of right now, Randy Decker, Angie Richardson, Eric Barnhart, Cindy Carr, Bessie Williams, Bobby Houston. Thank you guys so much for being patrons, and I appreciate it. Now, look, if you don't like ads, if they annoy you, a lot of people, not a lot, a few people message me and will say, God, ads are so annoying. Why you stuff them on your podcast like that? Well, it's to offset the cost of hosting. If you want to become a patron, you can say, first of all, say, hey, I appreciate what you do, support what you do. Secondly, you'll get your own special podcast feed just for patrons that has no ads. All this fluff we're doing right here is not in the podcast. You get the short, nuts and bolts, straight to the meat and potatoes part of the podcast, and you don't have to put up with any of this stuff. So if you want to check that out, losewithmason.com will take you right to the patron page. LOSEWITHMASON, losewithmason.com. So, a little bit of housekeeping before we get into this podcast on exercise, which I think will probably be very eye-opening to some people, if not everybody. So it's definitely a good one to stick around for. But we have changed the usernames on all of the social media except Twitter. I don't think I can change the name on Twitter. I'm still looking into that. But instead of Fat Guy Podcast, it is now Fasting Guy Podcast. For a couple of reasons that I'm going to get into very briefly here. I promise you I'll just take a second. When folks search for things in Apple Podcast or Google Play Store, they usually search for, like if they're interested in fasting, they'll search fasting. If they're interested in keto, they'll search keto. The name of my podcast has never really indicated anything specific. Fat Guy Podcast could have been a fat guy that talks about movies, a fat guy that talks about snacks, a fat guy that talks about his family life, a fat guy that talks about how he loves being fat. I mean, I thought it was a cute name at first, but it's not very specific. And since my lifestyle, which is still centered around all the tenets of you can't eat crazy processed carbs, you need to eat more whole foods, low carb or keto is the way to go. And intermittent fasting on top of that is also the way to go for a myriad of reasons. The closest thing I could come to what we were already doing that gives the person viewing podcast title some little bit of information on what they might hear if they listen was the Fasting Guy Podcast. So we've changed the name. All right. Hopefully we've got all of that out of the way. Let's get right into the subject of today's podcast, shall we? We're talking about exercise and more specifically, why I don't recommend that if you're obese that you hardly do any exercise. So we could look up the clinical definition of obese. We could look up morbidly obese, but pretty much once you surpass the 50 pounds overweight mark, and if you're really short, even 50 pounds is pretty bad. You know, if you're somebody that's 4'8" and you're 50 pounds overweight, you're in pretty bad shape. If you're a 6 foot tall man and you're 50 pounds overweight, you know, you're just a little overweight. You're not obese. So you have to take into consideration how tall a person is. But generally speaking, obese is, you know, you have well surpassed the 50 pound mark. You know, you got 70, 80, 90, 100, 150, 175, 200 pounds to lose. You know, you are a person who's not very mobile. You probably just walk to the kitchen, you walk to the bathroom, you may walk to the mailbox, you walk to your car, and then you walk when you go to Walmart, but it wears you out. and walking from your car in the parking lot of Walmart to get inside Walmart wears you out. I mean, you're an obese person if that's you. Even more extreme if just taking a shower wears you out. And I've been there. When I first started my weight loss journey, that's where I was. Taking a shower would wear me out. When I got out of the shower, I would literally be gasping for air. I have a video of it somewhere I recorded to show my doctor how out of breath I was just from taking a shower. So what I'm about to say about exercising, the larger you are, the more it applies to you. And that's about as specific as I can get about it. Like, I can't give you a specific weight cutoff. You know how mobile you are. You know how much you walk. You know how much you move around. Okay? Losing weight is well over 80% about what you eat. And so, if you want to lose weight, and you need to lose weight, 80% of your focus, 80% of what you think about every day, 80% of what you plan every day, 80% of what you execute every day, or more than 80%, needs to be about what you put in your mouth. And as an extension of that, when you put it in your mouth, and that would come in with the intermittent fasting. You don't need to be putting food in your mouth all day from 6 a.m. to midnight. You need to shrink that window down. 8 hours is the max. The maximum amount of time you should be putting food in your mouth is in an 8-hour window. For 16 hours, there should be no calories going in your mouth. You can have black coffee, you can have unsweetened tea, you can have club soda, you can have just regular old water. There's a lot of things you can have that don't have calories in it to drink, but you can't eat any calories, okay? That should be a primary goal of yours. You've got to let that insulin come down. You just got to. Not just because of your weight. I mean, you need it for the weight, but for your health, for life. And then obviously what you put in your mouth. All these processed carbs, it just makes it impossible to lose weight. You need to eat more whole food, real food, eggs, meats, real meats, leafy green vegetables. That should be primarily what you eat. And I would go even further than that and say primarily should be meat. Beef, hamburger meat, steak, chicken, primarily. Some sausage occasionally. Sausage is a little bit carby, but I eat sausage. I like sausage. And then bacon, of course. Don't forget about that. And let processed stuff go. I mean, if you just do those handful of things, man, the weight will just drop off. But then people get into exercise. What about exercise? So it's a sliding scale, right? How much exercise you can do, not need to do, but how much exercise you can do is going to depend on how heavy you are. And so here's what I tell people. As of right now, due to me losing ground with weight loss, and I'm totally upfront and honest about it. I don't hide anything, and I don't pretend. I don't put on airs. I did lose 125 pounds, kept it off a pretty good while. The death of my mom sent me into a spiral of depression, the likes of which I thought I would never come out of. It was a struggle just to want to wake up every day. Most days I just didn't even want to wake up. I laid in bed, ate donuts, drank chocolate milk. It was horrible. Gained weight back. Look, we are where we are. It's no excuse. It's a reason. It's not an excuse. And we're back on track now. Before I could get back on my physical health, I had to get my mental health right. It was a struggle. But nevertheless. I'll take you all the way back to the beginning of my weight loss as a good example, okay? And I'd lost 60 pounds. This is right a few months after my mom got diagnosed with cancer, and I decided I needed to lose weight. I lost 60 pounds in about, 8, 9, 10 months. And then I started walking. And then I started walking more. And then I started walking more. Then I started walking faster. And then I started jogging and was ecstatic about it. Something I hadn't done ever, really. I remember in the 10th or 11th grade, we had new PT, physical training things we had to meet to pass the class, which required me to jog to do I think it was a 10-minute mile. I nearly died. And as far as I know, that's the only time in my life I ever jogged. So I'd lost that weight. I was jogging. It was painful. I couldn't jog far. I could only jog in 30-second stretches. But boy, I was ecstatic about it because I had accomplished something. And then I injured myself. Put me in the recliner for months. I was smack dab in the recliner for months. It was horrible. Guess what happened? The immobility and then the depression that came along with where I had wound up at all combined together. I gained every single pound back. As a matter of fact, I went up to exactly what I started at. Exactly, to the number. And I finally got back on track. Then obviously we went on to lose 125 pounds. My point about exercise is the less mobile you are now, the less exercising you need to be doing. For most people, unless you're easily under 50 pounds to lose, I'd say even under 35 or less really should be the number for most heights. Once you get to 35 to lose or something, you can start doing different exercises. You might can jog. You might can, get into some more intense exercise and stuff. But for most people, you just need to walk. And you don't need to walk until you kill yourself and you can't move and you're dying from it. Don't need to walk until your back is in excruciating pain, or your or ankles are in excruciating pain to where you can barely move. You just start out walking. That doesn't mean you need to be lazy about it. You can push yourself, but walking is the number one exercise for weight loss. Anybody can do it pretty much. And it's very low impact on your joints, and there's very, very little risk of you being injured. So when people tell me that you got to exercise to lose weight, first of all, they're wrong. Second of all, exercise actually causes most people, there's studies on it, numerous studies have shown this, most people, especially obese people, but even overweight people, have a very hard time losing weight when they exercise, because exercise makes you ravenous. And the more exercise you do, the more ravenous you will be. So not only are you fighting your normal hunger demons that you've always fought, and your normal cravings that you always fought, you are now on top of that fighting intense ravenous hunger from all the exercising. And it's just a battle few people can win. I'm not saying nobody wins it, but it's just a very hard battle to win. I would rather a person sit in a recliner all day and cut their calories down to a point that's having them, if they're obese especially, anything 50 pounds or over, that's got you losing between 2 and 4 pounds a week sitting in a recliner. I'd much rather you do that than you be struggling to lose 1-2 pounds a week out walking your butt off, jogging, getting intense, and risking some kind of injury. It's just, that doesn't make any sense. There's plenty of time for moving around once you get more mobile. So going all the way back to the beginning of my journey, right after my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and we were at UAB in Birmingham, and my mom had to literally stop and wait for me to sit on a bench and rest up before we could continue. It's how bad out of shape I was. I started out just walking in the hall of my house. I would walk from the bedroom to the kitchen, to the bedroom, to the kitchen, and back, and that'd be about it. That was how I started. And then I had a little hand weight. I would lay in bed. It was a 5 or a 7 pound little barbell, and I would lay in bed and I would curl that thing. Just curl it, not until it injured me, but I would just curl that thing. So not a lot, but it was way more than what I was doing. And then the next thing you know, I was walking more. The next thing you know, I was doing that weight more. And then the next thing you know, at some point I was getting outside, and then I was walking and really moving. You got to meet yourself where you're at. If you're so obese that basically you're just making it from the bed to the living room and to the kitchen and to the bathroom, then where you need to start at is walking up and down the hall of your house. That's where you're at. You need to try to make a couple of treks from one end of your house to the other. Make it a trip back and forth, back and forth, back and forth in the morning, then do it again in the middle of the day, and then do it again in the evening, and that's about it. And you grow and you move from there. So what I tell people when they say, yeah, but you need to burn, you burn more calories, you got to do and build muscle and all this stuff they tell me. And here's what I tell them. When I first started my journey, I was 410 pounds. Every time I stood up out of a chair, I was lifting 410 pounds. So you, with your preaching and you're getting on my nerves with I need to be doing you grabbing a barbell and throwing 150 pounds of weight on it and squatting it, I'm easily doing that and more every time I stand up and sit down. I'm squatting that much weight, extra weight. This is what obese people have. You're carrying enormous amounts of weight. There's an enormous amount of stress on your cardiovascular system. I have a friend that works out all the time. She's probably the healthiest person I know. She has to do so much exercising to get her heart rate up to 125. Like she has to kill it on the bike, or she has to kill it out hiking up a hill or jogging or whatever to get her heart rate up to 125. Me, I can walk for about 10 minutes on a level surface at a very moderate to slow pace, and my heart rate is 125 to 140. It's just much more strain for me. And at that point, I'm getting massive cardio benefits, massive calorie burning benefits by doing way less than my friend is doing because of the difference in our bodies. If you're an obese person or an overweight person, you're exercising all the time. Just you walking from your bed to the kitchen, you're hauling around, if you're 100 pounds overweight, you're hauling around a 100-pound barbell on your back that a person less than you would have to do all the time. Imagine a person that weighs 100 or 150 pounds less than you throwing a 100 or 150-pound barbell on their back and literally carrying it with them everywhere all day. Like, you don't get to put it down. You don't go to the gym and pick it up and use it a little bit and put it down. You're carrying that thing around all day. So when you do anything, you're working out. So you do what you can do and you don't injure yourself, because injuries cause huge setbacks. And you especially don't want an injury that's going to require some kind of surgery, because the things that can go wrong in surgery are drastically orders of magnitude increase for people who are obese. So, you don't want to put yourself in surgery. You don't want to put yourself needing medical care. You don't want to put yourself in a recliner depressed so you're gaining weight rather than losing it. Exercise is 20% or less of the equation. There's plenty of time to get to it down the road. I say unless you've got 35 pounds or less to lose for most heights of people, people who are average height or taller, you need to be doing walking. You do it at a moderate pace, 2.5 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour is fast for me. I mean, I'm hustling. If I hit 3 miles an hour, I'd be gasping. I usually do 2.5. 2.5 is my upper end. 2 is my steady clip along pace. And my heart rate gets up into the 150s and it stays there soon after I start walking, and I'm getting a crazy workout. Focus on what you put in your mouth and when you put it in your mouth. If you focus on those two things and just move some, you need to move some. But don't think you got to go work out. Don't let your friend convince you, whoa, you've decided to lose weight now? You need to come to the gym with me every day and let me show you how to jump on all these machines and this treadmill and this. No. Now, tell your friend they can go to your local walking trail with you. Hopefully it's a very smooth, laid out walking trail, not like one of these through the woods walking trails. So there's no risk of you stubbing your toe and getting off balance and breaking something. And they're going to walk faster than you, and tell them, look, I can't keep up with you. I'm going to work my pace, but we'll be out here together. You can do that with them. Also tell them you're going to walk an hour. I'm probably, depending on how, again, you got to judge where you're at. I don't know you, so I can't judge where you need to be at. You need to use some common sense. But you're walking at the trail maybe 15 minutes. That may be it. It may be 20, maybe 30. My point is you need to move a little. Moving a little is good. The more you move, the more you'll be able to move if you keep it within a safe limits. But as far as weight loss goes, none of that is required. You don't have to hit, as my grandma used to say, you don't got to hit a lick at a stick, a lick at a snake, or whatever she used to say. As far as exercise goes to lose weight, you just need to know what you're putting in your mouth and when you're putting it in your mouth. And that's it. Let's keep that processed food out. Let's eat some real food. Let's make it low carb or keto. And then let's put some time between when we're eating. I'm personally doing alternate day fasting now. That's something you got to work up to. But up until a week ago, I was doing about somewhere between 20 and 22 hours a day of fasting, and then I would eat in a 2 to 4 hour window, depending on what day it was. Some days I'd fast 20 hours, some days I'd fast 22. Some days I'd eat one meal, some days I'd eat two in a 4 hour window or whatever. But I worked up to that. If we go back 6-7 weeks ago, I was in full-blown COVID-19 shelter-in-place, stuff in my face, watching Netflix mode, and I was eating every 2-3 hours. And when I said, hey, this has got to end, you got to get your life back on track. And I got this friend that helps me get through things, and she was encouraging me. And when I'd make it 6 hours, I'd text her and go, oh, God, I only went 6 hours without eating. I'm so disappointed. She's like, yes, that's better than what you were doing. You know? And I got to 12. I was doing 12 hours. So I was eating in a 12-hour window, and then 12 hours I was in a fasted state. That's only half the day. Like, that's the bare minimum anybody should do. Even the healthiest person in the world should be taking 12 hours off. But then the next thing you know, I hit 14, then I hit 16, and then I was on what most people would consider the minimum of an intermittent fast, 16-8. I was fasting 16 hours, eating in an 8-hour window. Then I started doing 18-6s. Then I started doing 20 and 4s. Then I started doing 22s and 2s. And then even some days I did 23 and 1s. I'd fast 23 hours. I'd eat a meal in a 1 hour window and go back to it. And then about a week ago, I think we're coming up, today is my 4th fasting day as I record this. Or maybe my 5th. It's either my 4th or 5th, which will put me at 8 or 10 days of doing this. And I'm doing alternate day fasting. So, like today I don't eat anything. Like I stopped eating yesterday afternoon at 6 or 7 or something. Didn't eat anything all last night. Eating nothing during the day today. Tomorrow at noon or 1 or something, I'll eat. And I'll be 40 or 42 hours or 44 hours fasted or something like that. And that's what I'm doing now. And I have a continuous glucose monitor, the Freestyle Libre on me. And so I can track what my blood sugar does throughout the day. And it takes me for my blood sugar to get back down to normal in the 80s like a normal person. That doesn't happen until probably like the last 6-7 hours of this 44-hour fast. So the larger you are, the more time you need to be putting between food. But make it a goal. You can't start out doing it alternate day. You just can't. Very few people can. Start out trying to shoot for 12-12. You know, then move it up to 14 and 10, and then move it up to 16 and 8, and then move it up to 18 and 6. What you eat when you eat. So I'm going to end this with some numbers that I found interesting. These are actual numbers. Actual numbers as well as they can be. This is from a calorie burn calculator. It's the most accurate one I could find, but here's what I looked at. 35-year-old female, 5'7", 160 pounds. This is a woman who 160 is what they consider the upper end of normal of a 5'7" woman. My mom, for example, I know this because during her cancer battle, weight was a big deal. I know my mom was 5'7", and she would love being 160, 165. But most women don't want to be that meaty. It's not fat by any stretch, but you can lose some weight, and a lot of people do. I'm just going to say this would be a 5'7" woman, 160, that wants to lose, 10, 15 pounds or something. If that woman, 5'7", 160, walks for an hour, she'll burn 186 calories. That's at a moderate to slow pace of 2.5 miles an hour. 186 calories, okay? Let's say a woman that has 50 more pounds to lose walks the same hour. She's going to burn 212 calories. That's going to be about, 30 more calories for the same time of walking? And then you find somebody that's just 100 pounds heavier. This is somebody that's obese now. They're obese. The first woman had a little bit of weight to lose. Now we go to somebody that's obese, walks that same hour at 2.5 miles per hour. It's going to burn 244 calories. 244. That's like a whole extra 60 calories from walking the same distance. And if you get somebody that's in horrible shape like me and is way, way overweight, we're looking at a 320 woman. Now, a 320 woman at 5'7" would be enormous. Enormous. But they're out there. 270 calories walking that same hour. So the woman that's 150 pounds overweight, 270 calories an hour walking, versus the woman that needs to lose 15 pounds, 186 calories. It's a huge difference. And that's why you can't let somebody else tell you what you need to do compared to what they need to do. Don't stress about exercise. Don't worry about exercise. Don't think too much about exercise. Move when you can. Moving when you can is important. Moving a little bit more every day. I wouldn't strive for anything other than walking. I'd just strive for, if 10 minutes is all I can do today, then by next week I want to be doing 15 minutes. By the next week I want to be doing 20. By the next week I want to be doing 30. By the next week I want to be doing 40. And by the next week I want to be doing 50 to 60. And that should be your goal. To get up to where you're walking an hour a day. And an hour a day of walking is enough exercise for anybody. So wherever you're at now, that should be your long-term goal. You do what you can do today. Don't do it till you kill yourself. Do more next week. Do more of that the next week. And get to where you need to be, where you're walking an hour a day. And you may be at the point you already can walk an hour a day. It's no problem. Then that's what you need to be doing. Walk an hour a day. What you put in your mouth, when you put in your mouth. That is my recommendations for you on exercise. I've worked with too many people, and I have my vast, long personal experience of dealing with all this to know, plus scientific research on top of that shows I would say 90% of the studies I've read shows that exercise is the antithesis to weight loss. It actually makes it harder and more impossible for people. Hope this helps. Thank you so much. If you're a patron, thank you. If you want to be a patron, losewithmason.com. And don't forget, new name everywhere now, Fasting Fat Guy. Instead of Fat Guy Podcast, it's Fasting Guy. Fasting Guy Podcast. All right, we'll talk to you next time. Thanks so much.